This episode of the All About Nothing podcast is sponsored by listeners like you and Big Media LLC, encouraging you to check your voter registration. In a world where every voice counts, ensuring your registration is accurate and up to date is the simplest, most effective way to guarantee your vote is heard. Don't leave your participation to chance. Take a moment today and verify your status and stay ready for the next election by visiting theallaboutnothing.com/voter.
The All About Nothing podcast may have language and content
that isn't appropriate for some.
Listener discretion is advised.
Welcome, Nothingers, to the All About Nothing podcast. I am Barrett Gruber. You can follow me across all social media at Barrett Gruber. Please subscribe and share the show. That's how we get new listeners. Also, please consider supporting the show financially by visiting theallaboutnothing.com and becoming an official member and proudly calling yourself a true Nothinger. We'll have more details on that at the end of the show. If you can't do that, please give us a 5-star review, a like, and follow us across social media. You can find links at theallaboutnothing.com. Real quick, before we get started, I want to thank Stephen Jacobs, author of the Lake Murray Murders and many more books, many set right here in Lexington, South Carolina area. It was an absolute pleasure sitting down with him, and hopefully you'll consider checking out his books, available at stephenjacobsauthors.com. Also, I want to remind everybody that the Everplay Sports and Social Fall 2026 League's registration is open now. Deadline for regular season sign-up is August 19th, and late registration begins August 20th. Everything from bowling, soccer, softball, kickball, cornhole, and much more is available to sign up, so do that now before you have to pay extra for those bleach white team shirts. Visit everplaysocial.com for details and registration. All right, we're going to get into it. Mark Lynch is no stranger to South Carolina politics or to challenging the establishment. Owner of Jeff Lynch Appliance Center in Greenville, a deacon at Burnsview Baptist Church, and a self-described true conservative, Lynch first launched his Senate bid back in February 2025, running to Lindsey Graham's right and calling the long-term senator a rhino who betrayed the South Carolina Republicans. Lynch took 29% of the vote against Graham in last June's primary, not enough to win, but enough to signal that there is an appetite in this state for something further to the right than Graham had ever offered. Then Graham died suddenly in mid-July, and everything changed. Within hours, Lynch announced he was back in, determined in his words to finish what God has called us to do. Now he's one of several Republicans, including Graham's own sister and newly appointed Senator Darlene Graham, vying for the nomination in the August 11th special primary that could reshape South Carolina's Senate delegation for a generation. Today we're talking policy, border security, spending, the Second Amendment, foreign aid, and what America First actually means in Lynch's own words. And I will say up front, my politics lean progressive, and Mark's platform is about as far right as it comes. But South Carolina voters deserve to hear these ideas stress-tested, not just recited, and understand, despite our differences of opinions, these are important conversations to have with Mark because he may well represent me and millions of South Carolinians just like me with similar opinions. So we're going to get into it. I want to welcome to the All About Nothing podcast candidate in the August 11th special Republican primary election, Mark Lynch. Welcome, Mark, to the All About Nothing podcast. Thank you very much for being here tonight.
Thank you, Barrett. It's a pleasure and an honor to be on your show. Thank you so much.
Oh, an honor. Goodness, that gives me chills. But sincerely, I appreciate it. You taking the time out of your day and sitting down with me. The last Senate candidate that I had was a gentleman out of Idaho who was running for the Republican nomination out there. So this is a big deal because this is my state. This is South Carolina. I've lived here for almost 26 years, and it's important to be able to have conversations regardless of party affiliation. I have plenty of Republican listeners and conservative friends that listen to the show and critique me a lot. So it's absolutely a pleasure. I want to start out with a biography of sorts. Tell us about it yourself. Tell us how you got to where we're at now.
Yeah, well, I'm a lifelong South Carolinian, born and raised here. I took over our family business back in 1985 and have been married to the same woman, Sarah, love of my life, for 38 years. We have 2 children, 4 grandchildren. How did we get into this? Back in 2014, I met a gentleman named John Guandolo, who was a Marine commander for 15 years. He headed up the anti-terrorism division of the FBI after 9/11 for 13 years. He left that position because of the infiltration of Islamic terrorism in our government and homeland security and our military and everything. and formed his own organization called Understanding the Threat. And that's when I met him. And we had a presentation in our chapel at our company where we have church services on Tuesdays and Thursday mornings with 2 pastors on staff teaching God's Word. So it's a room big enough to hold that event. We had 70 sheriffs, police chiefs, FBI, SLED agents in that meeting. It was 6:30 to 8:30. The meeting went past that. It went to 1:45 till 1 a.m. And everybody's chin was on the ground, learning how to deal with Islamic threat at the local level. And I got involved with him, became a board member, chairman of his board, and we started educating the public and educating our law enforcement in 7 counties in the upstate of South Carolina, and meeting people over the years. People said, you need to run for office. So I ran for a state Senate seat in 2020, lost by just 5%. After that, our campaign team met, and we formed the United Patriots Alliance, a political activist group fighting to stop bad bills and help good people get in government, get rid of the bad actors, and help make a difference in our community and in our state. And people said, you need to run again. And this topic came up in 25. And I said, what would you have me run for? And the governor position came up and the U.S. Senate position came up, and we prayed about it, met with our consultant, and we decided the U.S. Senate was the race for me to run against Lindsey Graham. So we filed in February of 25, and we put out a great fight, and we fought for 15 months or something like that, and traveled about 35,000 miles all across the state with over approximately 250 presentations of our platform. And Lindsey spent over $50 million to stop me in a very horrible, vulgar smear campaign. And we still ended up right at under 30%. And so, and probably more. We know there might have been some rigging on the machines. We believe we've had analysts checking into that. But
yeah, I think I
my
saw.
wife and I were discussing, on July 10th, I think that was the day before Lindsey passed, that, man, we're kind of glad it'd been about 4 weeks that all that was over. And we had a German Shepherd we had to put down. She was real sick, and I got up Sunday morning about 3:00 to check on her. Wolf, one of my favorite in a litter we had. And I was awake, and I picked up my phone about 3:45 and looked at it, and I saw the news Lindsey Graham had passed. I thought it was fake news at first, and I started digging into it. No, it was true. And so the calls and texts and emails started coming in from our past volunteers and people that helped us across the state and said, you got to get back in. I said, slow down. We got to pray for the Graham family, and then we'll look at this and see. And so we finally all met. A lot of the campaign people got on phone, came to the house, the people that were still in the local area. And about 5:00 Sunday afternoon, we decided we got to jump back in. So
Yeah.
We didn't just enter this race, like you said earlier. We feel like we got to finish what God called us to approximately 2 years ago, to get into this race and fight for for South Carolinians.
Well, and to have a second opportunity is not something that's afforded to a lot of people. And on the loss of Lindsey Graham, and again, while I ideologically I disagreed with Graham on many things, I still have to acknowledge what he, I guess, the symbol that he was for the state of South Carolina, because a lot of industry did come to South Carolina under his, I guess his reign. But it's kind of like with Strom Thurmond. Like when I first moved here to South Carolina, I immediately was within a year I was working for some federal contracts that were the direct result of Strom Thurmond's efforts to bring jobs here to South Carolina, and I benefited from that for years. So while I didn't agree with his politics, I absolutely had the utmost respect for the work that he had done and his office had done to make sure that South Carolina came first. So that's important. before we get into some questions, I wanted to ask you, because this has become front and center for a lot of people, and I'm seeing social media posts about this and news reporting. Flock cameras are popping up everywhere. Since Trump's inauguration, 116,000 new flock cameras have been installed across the country. You've certainly expressed your opinion on the legitimacy of these cameras and being an invasion of privacy. You mentioned it almost we're turning into a surveillance state. How did this become an issue that got your attention?
Well, we've seen it happening. We study the deep state effects on our country and our state, and this is about Agenda 2030 that's been finishing out, and is to bring in social scoring on the citizens like they do in China, where we'll be pinned down in our homes in invisible prisons, and we won't be able to buy or sell or move, and they can get all of our information, our finance information, and they'll score us on how we live and what we think and what we post, and they'll start controlling us at a deep level. And that's the reason all these data centers are coming up all of a sudden everywhere. And our local county people aren't telling us about it. We just find out because we see hundreds of acres of trees bulldozed, and we wake up and like, what happened to all the trees over there? What's going on? That's going to be a new data center. They just forgot to tell you that they chose your neighborhood. And I know we got to stay relevant and move into the future, and we do need more storage for all the data that AI and everything's collecting. And but we got to slow down and make sure we're still doing things right. And one thing is, you can't just put them anywhere you want to. And if we understood why we need all these data centers, we might understand why we don't want flock cameras.
Yeah.
And it's maybe good for police to track down a stolen vehicle or do criminal investigations and enforce the rule of law and arrest criminals. And that's a good thing. But a lot of things have a bad side that we have to protect. I know our local sheriffs just had some problems and had to fire a couple of police officers for using them for the wrong reasons.
Yeah.
And so that's good that we're hearing about that too. But we're for banning flock cameras in a surveillance state that's happening. It's the public's always the last to hear, and we need to be more informed, and we need to be in on these decisions that our government is using feels like a tyrannical state.
It does.
And an attack on the citizens' privacy.
Yeah, I pass no less than 7 flock cameras on my way between my house and the gym. And I go every morning between 3:45 and 4 a.m. to the gym and then back home when I'm done. And it had never even occurred to me that I understand the necessity of having cameras potentially to snap a picture of somebody that runs a red light, because ultimately you don't want people pushing a 2-ton, giant vehicle through an intersection where there could potentially be someone crossing or a vehicle crossing in front and a collision happens. So there has to be some way to prove that there has been fault to an incident. So I certainly understand the necessity of traffic cameras. The flock cameras feel invasive. The flock cameras, because they're being purchased in some ways, they're being in a number of ways, they're being purchased by private businesses. The Lowe's down the street from me has 3 cameras. They're not pointed at the street, they're pointed at the parking lot. They're actually specifically pointed at the unloading area where the contractors are loading their vehicles with purchases, wood and tools and things like that. So I have to ask myself a question. If these cameras are designed to keep track for law enforcement, why are they so readily available for private companies? And why are they pointed? Lowe's has $1 billion in their shrinkage. And I really don't think people are walking out with hundreds of pieces of lumber without paying for them. It just doesn't make sense. Lowe's doesn't, and of course, then I find out Lexington County here has access to those flock cameras. And then I begin to ask, why does Lexington County need access to cameras that Lowe's uses in their parking lot? It's that there's not enough information being given out about this. Obviously, Lowe's is a public company; they're publicly traded. I feel like people that have stock in Lowe's should be able to ask these questions. So, I definitely
we have security cameras around our campus, in the store and outside on the grounds, but they can't go to your private information and your banking information and where you live and everything. It's just taking pictures of what's going on, just like we take a picture with our phone. It doesn't have the software to go deeper into your private information.
Yeah, it's definitely concerning, and I think you're on the right side of this one for sure. Absolutely, 100%. All right, so I want to get into some immigration and birthright citizenship, because you're calling for the end of birthright citizenship. Sorry, let me say that again. You are calling for the ending of birthright citizenship for children of undocumented immigrants. These are specifically people that come to the United States, whether they are here as visitors or they have come here not through the correct means of immigration legally, and then potentially have children. Now, recently, the Supreme Court reaffirmed birthright citizenship, striking down the executive order that Trump put in, confirming that children born in the United States are U.S. citizens. How would you consider going about making birthright citizenship that's now currently reaffirmed to being not legal, or that those people would not be considered citizens?
Yes, we have to go back, I guess, with the committee discussing this with the judicial system and how we interpret the Constitution. And, I don't know that we have to make an amendment. I think it's a matter of interpretation, and people are questioning all of this for the first time because we've got ourselves into this fix with open borders and all the consequences and the collateral damage all these illegal aliens are costing American citizens. So again, if a couple comes over here, the mother or the wife is pregnant and they just happen to be visiting that week and they're in America on a visa or something for a short period of time and have their baby, that's not, we've all thought it through. That can't be determined to be a legal citizen of America when the parents weren't legal citizens. So we have to redefine that and bring it back out and bring it to Congress and vote on it, and talk about all the implications that this causes.
Yeah, that is one thing that the Supreme Court seems to be pretty united on, is that if there's ambiguity, or if there is some sort of question about what it means in the amendments that we have, that the Supreme Court certainly does push back and say, look, you got to create laws. Congress has to do something and actually create laws, and then allow for those laws to be supported by the Supreme Court, for law enforcement to be able to support them. And ultimately, we have a Congress that for at least the last 2 years, potentially the last 4 years, has almost done nothing in respect to the creation of laws or looking at the potential of making amendments. So it's and I'll disagree with what I believe, only because I think that I look at our immigration and we talk about open borders and things like that, and I certainly recognize that we absolutely have an immigration issue here in the United States. As a progressive, I recognize our country does not have the ability to allow or even to immigrate more people into the United States that want to come here legally. Our immigration courts are backed up, years in this whole process. So we certainly have people that want to come to the United States to make better lives for themselves, but we don't have the infrastructure to support the number of people that want to come here. I think that our asylum rules need to be looked at and figured out how we can make that benefit the United States rather than just opening the doors and allowing whoever wants to be here come, that we have to have rules, and those have to be enforced. And so we do need the ability to, and it's like almost every other country across the world protects themselves with their borders and their immigration policies. And we have continued to have a Congress over and over, year after year, that isn't actually working to make this happen. There have been plenty of studies across the spectrum of what improvements could be made, and almost all of them point at somehow freeing up our immigration courts to make the determinations of which people should be allowed to be here and which shouldn't. So, I think that ultimately we're not pushing on our Congress enough to try and get them to make changes that will benefit the United States. They talk about it, they just don't do it.
Right. It's time to have a focus. It's been a major issue for years. We've all talked about it for years. When I read my daily meditations, a couple of years ago, one of my meditations was about boundaries in our personal life. God was talking about in the Word, and we're to have boundaries, right? Or we become like nations without walls, with open borders that are open for complete ruin and devastation. So God knows we need borders. We need to have walls. We need to have security. We need to have protection. On the other side, America is a country a lot of people desire to come here. So I believe it's the greatest nation and greatest experiment of freedom and having a dream to live here of any country. But if we have too much bureaucracy and red tape and we're not handling it, and we don't have enough employees or whatever, we need to take a break. We can't have open borders. I think we all agree on that. We can't just pass mass amnesty bills and just let all the 50 million people become citizens overnight because we don't want to deal with it. That's not the answer. They have to be people that aren't terrorists. They're not here to destroy America. They're not drug cartel people. They're not people that are felons and that are running from the laws from the country they left and evacuated to come here and hide out and come in here and rape our children and kill them and cause car accidents and be another burden on America and cost us a lot of money. They need to be coming in here to work to help build this country like our original immigrants were when they started America. They got to be on the same page as we are. So we have vetting, we have immigration laws, we have to enforce them, but it's right now, we've talked about, is it time to have a moratorium and say no more? We've got work to do. We've got to go back and clean up this mess we've already created amongst ourselves, and then we'll talk about more immigration when we're caught up and we can write new rules and look at all the problems we've dealt with and fix it and stay focused on that and make sure we're ready when it's time to start that up again.
Do you agree that diversity makes the United States a better country?
Like DEI?
No. I mean, like diversity, like national diversities, whether European or Asian.
Well, we have a culture here that they have to come into, and they have to understand what we believe. And this is one nation under God. It's not many. You can express and believe whatever you want to, but our nation was founded under the one true God, a Christian nation, and we've got to get back to that. Our campaign is God first. That's the foundation of this country. The communist planks, if you look at what the Communist Manifesto wanted to do, they knew they had to remove God because that's what this whole country's built on. You got to get God out of here. Karl Marx knew that. And so they've done a good job removing prayer in schools and all the things that have happened to undermine our nation's foundations. And we're falling, we're flushing because our foundation's gone. So we're about bringing God back first. That's the only way you can make America great again and return us to our roots of how this country was founded. So we can't become every other country's influence. They have to be willing to come into here and accept this is what Americanism is. And this is what our country believes in. Every country I've gone to and visited, they have their culture and they protect it. We've got to protect our culture.
You're not
We've
wrong.
evolved into this, and we got to protect it.
You're not wrong. Spain still is very much attached to the Catholic Church. They still have a king that handles a lot of his business through the Pope. So a lot of countries do hold on to those traditions that certainly set a level of moral expectancy. So I can't deny that is the case. You've talked a lot about Islamic terrorists and Chinese corporations in the same breath as immigration. Are you concerned that framing conflates undocumented immigration with terrorism in a way that isn't really supported by data?
I'm not sure what you mean by that.
Well, as far as we have a lot of, okay, let me ask it a different way. So Chinese corporations in the United States right now, in my opinion, some of them, especially the ones that are buying up single home properties, especially here in South Carolina, are acting as corporate terrorists. They are driving up the price of living, whether it's through all of the home purchases that they're making. We have neighborhoods across South Carolina that are owned completely by outside of the country corporations that are in control of whether those homes are sold or whether they're rented. And when I first moved here to South Carolina, I was paying less than $600 a month in rent. The same apartment that I lived in 26 years ago before my home was built is now going for $1,850 a month.
Yeah. That's a national security threat, I think, is what you're getting to.
Yes.
Absolutely. We have different threats today people aren't recognizing. They're not driving tanks from boats, putting their decks down and pouring in here through Myrtle Beach, attacking us with guns and jets and tanks and military. They're coming in like that, buying up our land, price fixing the homes, making the opportunity for our young generation to own their own home a stretch. They're all concerned about that. The American dream's disappearing for people. And inflation is definitely killing our country. And people are struggling. That's one of the top things we hear everywhere we've traveled for the last 15 months. And the first primary campaign is affordability and what are we going to do to stop inflation? People can't live. They can't pay their health care. I had a friend of ours at church Sunday said, y'all got to pray for me. I can't pay my health insurance. You know, she's dealing with the gas prices and groceries and everything is just highly inflated and we've got to stop it. And, you know, we haven't had a budget since Clinton. And, you know, I know Lindsey was on the committee for the chairman of the budget and we haven't had one. I don't know how you do that. We can't do that in our company. We have to have a zero-based budget method. We've got to go through and analyze, do we need any of these things still? Where can we cut? And we can't keep printing money. That's one big reason inflation's through the roof. But like you said, big corporations are buying up our single-family dwellings and upping the price, and it's making it out of reach for people. We've got to stop that. But we can't sell our land to foreign countries of any kind. We're gonna sell ourselves out of a place to live and call home if we don't own it anymore. That's got to be a new law. We can't sell to people of foreign countries and allow people to take the quick pay, the short term get rich quick thing, and sell our country out from underneath us.
It does increasingly make it more difficult. I think that I see more and more outreach in social media from people asking for help, and people that I would not have thought. I mean, whether they're neighbors or they're people that I know, it breaks my heart to see it. And you know, we're certainly not well off. It's not based on the current socioeconomic status, I would say that we are middle class. And the middle class is something here in the United States that continues to fall short every election cycle, really, because there's so much more money interest in these corporate donors and these large PACs that are financing the campaigns, and then some of the candidates wind up being so engrossed and ingrained with these huge donors, or the ones that are making commercials for them that don't really have a tie to them, but that are, let's say, friends of candidate A. So it increasingly makes it more difficult for the middle class and the poor in this country to try and get a leg up. And it's those outside interests that are really tearing people's wallets apart. So
right, America's in the middle of a perfect storm, Barrett. We're being hit at all angles in every category of life. And the Islamic terrorists aren't here. There are killings and bombings and things still going on, but they're fighting with a different weapon. It's colonization. They're having 12, 15 children. We're having one and a half, two. And so they'll eventually win by numbers. They're winning with laws like red flag laws, where we'll just report on each other and have our guns seized. They're winning on hate crime bills, where we're losing our freedom of speech to talk up against evil or share the gospel of Jesus, because that's offensive, so we won't be able to do that. There's so many things coming at us in different ways. Some of us don't have the discernment to see it happening. The flock cameras, the data centers, all the things we're talking about, the H-1B visas, our children graduating out of college and having to compete with children from India and other countries that'll never assimilate into our culture, and that their country pays for them to come here. Our children are having to pay their tuition off over the next 20 years if they're funding their own college cost of getting a diploma. And these kids are asking me the questions, what are we going to do with that? Mr. Lynch, I was born here in this country, and I'm going to lose my job to a foreign competitor that'll take half the pay and take my job from me. And, what are we doing?
Yeah.
When are we going to stop this?
And
he says, I appreciate your stance on the border and immigration and all, but what are we doing with all these foreign students in America taking our jobs when they're not going to they don't care about America? So that's a good point.
Well, and legitimately, our country has been fighting the export of high-paying technology jobs since we entered the technology revolution. Like since the mid-90s, we have seen companies create here in the United States and then send that support to overseas nations where it can be done for less money. I work for a company now that half of the people that I work with are in India, and as much as it bothers me that I don't get paid enough, I know that they're getting paid less for the same amount of work that I'm potentially doing here. So it's, and as an individual that sees equality and wants things to be equal, these are my coworkers, these are my cohorts, these are people that I care about. It breaks my heart to know that they're still living in poverty off of a quarter of what I'm being paid. Not to take my pay away, please don't. But it pains me to see that corporations recognize the differences in values and cost of living, and that someone overseas, they can just take advantage of that and move my job potentially overseas to have somebody else do it. Thankfully, I've tried to make myself as valuable to whoever it is I'm working for as I can in order to make sure that I stay above the grade. But it's, this is something that's been going on for more than 40 years now. And it doesn't seem like the United States government really has any desire. They'll say it, but they don't want to fix it. They don't want to, it's difficult. You mentioned, go ahead.
Just one comment about that. We've seen in our industry, big corporations, the big appliance manufacturers for a while, years ago, because you're right, this has started a long time ago. They started hiring service assistants on phones and phone banks and offices in India and different parts of the world. And they wanted us, if we don't do our own service, we have our own service and people here we work with. But we heard it through other corporations that didn't have a lot of local service here. We carry Electrolux, GE, Whirlpool products, a lot of different brands. And they started hiring people in India to work at these data centers to answer service calls. And that was like an only option. I'm like, that's not going to work. Our customers are calling in. They can't understand these people. They don't care. It's a wasted phone call. We've got to have Americans that speak English that can communicate clearly. These are South Carolinians, y'all. We got to understand each other. And they'd call us back and say, I'm not calling that 800 number again. It took a long time to get through, and I'm talking to somebody I can't understand. And so they've all gone through that cycle, and they've come back around, and they've had to bite the bullet, and they have to realize we're going to have to pay what Americans are worth and bring in those payrolls and just suck it up and deal with it, because that's not working. We can't always run to the low-cost provider and expect good results.
Yeah.
So we're seeing a lot of corporations reanalyze all that because it's created a nightmare, in America. We need to keep hiring our people and deal with it. And we've got to prevent all these foreign nationalists to bring their people in that are not, like I say, they don't assimilate into our culture or take over some of the main business categories we have to protect to stay open and stay legitimate, stay in business.
It sounds like as a business owner in South Carolina, especially appliances, that like you said, they do get their support numbers wind up being someone outside the country that is not necessarily representing your business, but secondary to that, your business winds up being affected by the fact that someone has a refrigerator with an ice maker that isn't working, but they're having to troubleshoot this with somebody that they can't understand what it is that they're saying, or there's not a real context in the conversation to be able to handle the back and forth of what it is potentially the product that someone has purchased from you and is now having to get support from someone else. I think that speaks, again, like you said, a lot to we should embolden our trades. Like, I have a son who is in welding school. Like, he chose not to go to college because one, the cost of it. If he wants to go to school here in South Carolina, 4 years at the University of South Carolina or Clemson, he's going to walk out of there with $160,000 worth of debt that he's going to have to pay off over the course of his next potentially 40 years. And to walk out of school as a graduate and go into the workforce almost immediately and have that debt just sitting on top of them. Other countries, other first world countries like us, they don't have that in their system. They have come up with solutions for education that wind up assisting with some of that. And what we've seen over the course of at least the last 2 years, and even presidents before, there hasn't been a real drive to try and make education something that is attainable. I mean, I have friends that are doctors that went to school overseas to become doctors because of the cost, and knowing that they were going to come back to the United States to work, not crippled by that debt. But it's just such a weird place to be in with the United States and us wanting to be as best as we can, but then again, bringing not improving the lives of the people that live here. That we seem to find our government seems to find new ways of working with companies and corporations, and now universities that are public universities that we pay taxes that take money from us as taxpayers, but yet we seem to continue to see the budget at University of South Carolina has grown to the size of one of the largest corporations here in the state of South Carolina. They make more money at the University of South Carolina than some of the businesses that have moved here. That to me is just a crazy situation that I can't understand. I don't understand how a public school can take in so much money from taxpayers and yet still need more money through just ridiculous tuition fees. So, I've got this shirt from zjzdesigns.com. It's one of their Thanksgiving prints, and I wore it to family dinner last year. I got more compliments on that thing than any of the food that we brought. Seriously, their stuff is clever, it's comfy, and it's always a conversation starter. Whether you're into spooky Halloween teas, patriotic vibes, or you just want something original that doesn't look like it came from a big box store, check them out. ZJZ Designs. They've got new prints all the time, and I guarantee you'll find one that fits your vibe. Check out zjzdesigns.com.
When I went to the University of South Carolina, and my freshman year was the fall of 1976, and I remember what my tuition was as we went and applied for our classes and schedules, in the Coliseum. And it was $366 for tuition. You still had to buy books and pay for your dorm and your food. But that was the tuition for a semester, $366 in 1976.
How
where's that gone?
we're talking 52 years or 50 years. That's Also, congratulations from graduating from University of South Carolina. What did you graduate with?
I didn't graduate. I had like another semester to go, and we were having hard times, and I had one more semester. And my father said, "It's time to come home and work." And so, but I was right there, and I've had dreams about that, being 50-year-old or 60-year-old in classes, and they're like, "What are you doing in here, you old fart?" Because I didn't get the diploma, but I majored in advertising and public relations.
Okay, very good.
Yep.
You and I are similar. I have one semester to go for my degree, but at the age of 47, I don't think I'm willing to do it. Although I will say that, for students that know that they don't want to be crippled with the debt that comes with going to university and things like that, there are so many public corporate scholarships available that corporations have money on their budgets that they give out. There's a book that is published every single year with thousands of scholarships available that I took advantage of so that I didn't have the debt. But I didn't finish mine. Mine was in IT work, computer science, specifically project management, and I didn't finish because it was easier to go to work and than to finish that up. So I completely understand that.
Yep, and you've done fine. So that's good.
I do all right. I get by. You're mentioning the red flag laws and things like that. You are calling for a full repeal of the National Firearms Act, which currently regulates things like fully automatic weapons and short-barreled rifles. Purely out of curiosity, is there any category of weapon you think the federal government should still regulate?
In the beginning, we had the same weapons the government had. And so if they can have a fully automatic AR-15, we should be able to have it. We've got to maintain that. If the government has a 50 caliber rifle, we need to have one. I have one. I have a Barrett 82A1 long distance precision rifle. I've gone to several long distance precision rifle schools. I have a 6.5 Creedmoor precision long rifle. So, guns don't kill people. People kill people. We need to outlaw. If that's the case, then we need to outlaw spoons. Because some people have a problem eating too much, and it causes health issues, and they die. We need to outlaw minivans, because people have driven minivans into crowds of people and killed them. People kill people. A gun's never killed anybody. And when we have people that are members of the NRA or Gun Owners of America, the good people that are in this country that understand what the 2A means, and it shall not be infringed. Those are legal terms, and we have to protect that with everything we have. You can go to the genocide charts and look through the history of nations 200 years and back. And when the government told the people, you can trust us, you don't need guns, we'll buy them from you, the next day they were killing their citizens. So we've got to keep the 2A alive and well.
Yeah, and I am not the progressive liberal that says that doesn't believe in the Second Amendment. I absolutely recognize exactly what it means right now. And I own several firearms. I don't own a Barrett rifle though. With the day that I found out that the military had a rifle that had my name, was one of those I wanted to try one.
Yeah.
I've seen plenty of videos on the YouTube of people shooting it, and that is a beast of a weapon. So
yes, sir.
You oppose red flag laws, even due process protected as a due process protected tool. If a family member knows a relative is a danger to himself or others and has no legal recourse, what would the alternative be?
That's a good question. I guess we have to read into the details in the law, because with a call, the way I understand it right now, just if the sheriff gets a call, they can go and remove that weapon from an individual. There needs to be a different process. It shouldn't just be immediate seizure of the weapon with a phone call. There's got to be some other stipulations in there to protect the gun owner or the rights to have his weapon, because we can all just turn on each other and start calling up and telling the police there's a problem and make up stories about it, and they have to go investigate it and remove the weapon. So that's got to be redone.
It certainly takes away from the efficiency and the effectiveness of law enforcement if they're constantly trying to investigate someone that has been reported.
I mean, how do we deal with our family or neighbors if we thought were dangerous before?
Duct tape and rope.
Yeah. Well, we might call the police out of concern for the wife or the kid's safety or the neighbors.
Yeah.
If the guy's drunk and raising Cain in the streets and shooting his gun off in the air, we just call the police and say we've got a problem with the guy, and they go make their decisions and enforce the laws.
Yeah. No,
but they're not going with a single purpose to take the weapon. That might not even be an issue at the time.
Yeah. I one of the concerns that I've had over the course of the last, especially the last year and a half, 2 years, is this idea that we seem to have some lawmakers that have this idea that crimes can be stopped prior or before they ever happen. I mean, there was a movie with Tom Cruise called The Minority Report, this idea that you could stop crime before it happens. And one of the things I think that there is this idea that some of this pushing out of these flock cameras and things like that if they're tracking someone that potentially matches a description, or that a vehicle has a license plate that they're following or something like that, that they can put to rest any fear of potential crimes, as long as the surveillance state has the ability to track people. And that's their excuse. You mentioned data centers and AI having access to this information, or we're going in that direction at the very least. If it's not there yet, we're definitely headed that way with this network of cameras. As a senator, how would you try to argue that point that it's just not the right we can't preeminently we can't define someone's actions until they've actually done them.
That's right. Again, this is about getting America back to God. We can't make people behave. We have to look at the morals that they have and train our children on godly values. And people that have a gun that love Jesus aren't killing people. People that have a concealed weapons permit they're not the problem. It's the criminals that are getting the guns, And so we have to look at those things, and we have gun laws that prevent criminals from buying guns in South Carolina. We have to fill out a form every time you buy one, and there's a process that everybody has to go through to make sure we don't sell a gun to somebody that's going to go kill somebody later. So we do the best we can with that, and then we have to support law enforcement and make sure they have everything they need to do their jobs. But it all starts at the home. Marriages ending up 50% in divorces and all of that is causing a lot of problems these kids are growing up in, and nobody's paying attention to them, and both parents are working, or they have a one-parent home and the kids are left behind, and they're learning their education in the streets, and they're not being taught anything, and it's a mess, all of it.
Yeah, and even respect to the amount of divorce that occurs, because I've had two. But my children are absolutely in my presence at least half the time. But my ex and I get along very well. I'm still very close with her family. That our children are raised, I think, exceedingly well. And they ask for nothing. No child asks for nothing. I take that back. But there's something to the moral implications of divorce as well, because I have, I read in the newspapers of a there was what had just happened in Michigan, where the husband, what do they call this, a mass, or whatever it is they define it as, but the husband killed all 6 or 7 of the children and the wife, and then he burned the house to the ground, killing himself inside of it. And we have other stories where a woman and their children wind up being killed by the husband, that she was begging to get away from him, that law enforcement had taken him away several times, but he, came back. And in the end, so I guess basically I'm trying to make that there sometimes is a just reason for a wife to potentially separate from an abusive husband, or children to be taken out of that situation to protect them for their future. But it's certainly something that I think that there is merit to it if the situation calls for it.
Absolutely.
I think that sometimes that there isn't enough protection of potential victims, and I think our government has failed in a lot of ways in respect to that.
Right.
I know we don't have
society needs to pay attention, and there's warning signs sometimes, and that's up to the citizens to pay attention and talk and counsel, and then sometimes it's time to call the police in.
Yeah, families
out of concerns.
Families absolutely should be involved, and there are always warning signs. There are always warning signs. I'm not an investigator. I've never had anything to do with law enforcement or military as far as me, but I've had plenty of family that were military, and that were. I have family that was law enforcement detectives, and that's the one thing that they tell me every single time is everyone around them knew, and nobody said anything.
Right.
So,
and we hear that in the news a lot with major shootings, and just like Charlie Kirk or whatever. We're learning things, and so it's about community, and people doing life together and loving one another and caring and communication. Right.
Yeah.
It's about putting the we see our kids, and we all have these things, and we're addicted to them. And we see families sitting in restaurants a foot across the table from each other. They haven't seen each other all day. The parents have been at work. The kids have been at school. They're now out to dinner for a family dinner instead of eating at home. And everybody's on these stupid things.
Yeah.
In
Yeah,
our
you're right.
family, these don't come to the table. They're off. This is a good tool, but we're going to visit and talk and find out where our kids are at in their minds and what they went through today at school. And I need to recognize my wife, and when I come home, be available for her and see what her day was like and get into her world and see how I can help,
Yeah.
and talk.
No, I completely agree with you. I think that the crutch of that access to whatever it is that distracts them, that's one of the things with my children is that we set limits on how much time they have available. If we're sitting down to dinner, it's dinner time. If we're hanging out on the couch before it's time to get our nightly routine wrapped up before bed, it's shutting down. It's trying to connect. And I think that's one of the big things. That's one of the things that makes families strong through the generations is the connection that we wind up losing because of these stupid things. And
right.
If I didn't have to have it, look, I go camping. I go camping up there in your area, up there in the Greenville area, Paris Mountain. The not having access to the fact that they added Elon Musk's satellite system to our phones now drives me insane because I don't want it. I don't need it. The likelihood is if I go camping or I go somewhere, the phone gets put aside or it gets turned off completely. And I tell people, look, chances are you're not going to be able to reach me. It's disconnecting from those things. And
That's right. Unplug.
Fully support that. 100%.
Amen.
See, we were going to agree on stuff.
Yeah.
I want to talk a little bit before I let you go because I know we're pressed on time. We don't have much left. But Lindsey Graham, you and he and he tore you apart. But I still don't understand. There is such animosity sometimes in these campaigns. How do you break yourself away from, because the potential, you got 30% of the vote against Lindsey Graham, higher than anyone else. In my mind, that makes you as the likely to probably carry this nomination. How do you break yourself away on a daily basis or from just the ugliness that these campaigns create?
Yeah, I can't control anybody. My wife reminds me of that. I'm powerless over people, places, and things. And in a campaign, we understood if you don't have any demons in your past, they'll make up something. And this was a very ugly campaign. I don't think I've ever seen a campaign with the level of attack like was put up against me. We know it's a spiritual warfare. We're going up against hell itself when we talk about bringing God into D.C. And it's spiritual warfare. And so it was hard. It's hard on the kids to see things about me. And, one of the flyers that came out was about my criminal arrest record. That was 42 years ago. And I talked about my addiction struggles on my website when we first made it. That was the About Mark section is still in there. It didn't show every arrest and every DUI, the 3 DUIs and the felony cocaine charge, but that was true. That happened. And a lot of families are dealing in those areas, and we've helped thousands of men and women. I met my wife in a recovery program after I'd been clean for a while. And we married, and I knew I made some boundaries of who I would pick out. It had to be somebody similar in age, a female that lived around here. I don't want to fly to San Francisco for Thanksgiving, and if I could meet somebody here
or Argentina, right?
Yeah, right. And so we met, and we've both been clean and sober over 40 years. Probably 20% of our staff has come through recovery, and we help them as a safe environment with church and like-minded people that have lived one day at a time and put their recovery and God first again. And hang on, it's going to be the ride of your life. And we've seen people come from the lies of addiction into freedom in Christ. And uh, we can talk about my past. We all have one. I want to
Sure.
talk about God's redemption and me grabbing onto Him and fighting with everything I had and changing everything about me and surrendering to my Lord and Savior. Because I was saved at 11, but I'd left that path for a while, and my name was still in the book of life. If I'd have died, I'd have gone to heaven, but I wasn't serving Him. I was the Lord of my life. I'm going to do it my way, and my way didn't work, and I came crashing to a halt, and I had to ask for God's help, and He said, grab my hand, let's go. I've got better things for you to do. These are not the plans I had for you. And I knew that, and I came back. And so it's a story of redemption, a story of persevering through the fire, coming out of the fire to the other side. And so that gives me strong faith. I know with Christ I can do all things, who gives me the strength in Jesus. And I've seen that in our business. He's the owner of our business. It's not me. I've realized God's the owner of the dollar in my wallet, my dog at home, my wife, these employees, my kids. You know what I own? Nothing. He's the owner of everything. And I need to be aware of that, and I am. And it's a very strong, very true, concerning reality. Man, I've got to be a good steward over all this stuff that He's put in my hands to manage for Him. And so I surrender my will every day. And it's all about God in my life. We've done mission work all over the world. We've led many, many people to Christ in Bible studies and doing mission work in Haiti and Central African Republic and Liberia. And we know the next mission field is the swamp in D.C. And my wife and I are ready to go. And it takes strong character, because when you get there, evil's going to try to pull you left and off center and way far, far, far left into craziness maybe. And our laws have to match God's laws. And when they don't, we're to resist at whatever level we have to. That's how this country is founded. That's the only answer. We've got to bring Him back first again. And I'll tell anybody listening, if I could give anybody the magic pill, if it came in a pill, but it's a verse that I was taught in a Narcotics Anonymous meeting, that I better put God first. And that's Matthew 6:33 and 34. When we seek God first and His kingdom of righteousness, He will add everything to us that we need. He'll do it for us. I've experienced that in my life, Barrett.
Well,
when I first heard that verse, and if this was my life and I gave God a little piece of it, I'll let you have this one little piece, but I'm going to hold on to this. I gave Him a little piece, and I said, show me what you do with that. It scared me to death, because I saw immediate favor and blessing come with His mercy and grace and forgiveness, and I couldn't believe it. It scared me. And somebody in an AA meeting said, don't get used to that, son. That's that magic carpet ride you're going to get on, and God's going to pull that out from under you, and you're going to hit the asphalt. You'll wake up. That was a lie from the pit of hell. I've never got off that carpet ride. It takes work and faith, and I've persevered through that, and that's the kind of character it takes to be ordained as a deacon that I am in our church at Burnsview Baptist Church. And I'll bring those character qualities from learning to persevere one day at a time over 40 years and fight the giants in my life. Yes, I did some stupid stuff. But I'm not an addict. That doesn't define me. I'm God's child. I'm highly favored. The enemy can't touch me. No weapons formed against me shall prosper. And if God is for me, who can be against me? I believe in His word, and I know my identity. My identity is in Christ, not addiction, not an appliance store owner, because I'm not the owner. I'm just trying to be a good steward of this store He's blessed me with to manage. And I've prayed the Jabez prayer for years, that God would bless me and my entire family today and forever indeed. That doesn't mean give me more stuff or more money. It means help me to serve you in a bigger kingdom way. And so if I'm supposed to go to the U.S. Senate and bring God back and help other senators believe what I believe, and we could start doing things and coming up with solutions instead of talking a lot and going through the motions, then we can make America a better place and South Carolina a better place and serve the people. That's who I work with. I've got to be a good steward over you, Barrett, and all the South Carolinians that choose to vote for me. I want the endorsement of the people, not a fellow peer that's already in Congress not doing anything. I don't want to be that. I'm an outsider. I'm not a politician. I'm just a God-fearing patriot, and I'm a statesman, and I'm doing this, and I'm willing to sacrifice. When I could retire and go home, my wife and I got 4 grandchildren we can enjoy now. We've made a good living through the years, and we put over $5 million of our retirement fund into this race, and that's a sacrifice, right?
Yeah.
And I trust God. He supplies everything we need, not me. It's not my money. We've helped missions and churches all over the world, and so we're willing to do this because we were asked, because people can see the fruit in my life and in my wife's life, in our business and children. And so we've got a lot of good stuff, and I love the Lord, and we're willing to go and serve if this is our next calling. I'm trusting the Lord and saying, if not me, who? If not now, when? It's now, and it is me, and I'm answering the call, and I'm leaving it up. I have to the citizens of South Carolina. If you think I'm the best candidate, thank you.
Well, and I'll
check
just
us out.
Yeah,
vote for me. Help us get there.
I was going to say, I'll just add, my hope is that if you're elected, that you'll represent everyone in South Carolina the same, regardless of whether they voted for you or not. Because ultimately, that's what defined Strom Thurmond for me. While
during COVID, we didn't wear masks here. We had probably 30% of our staff started out wearing them, and they were concerned, and we were all concerned. What is this? It was weird. And every business is essential. We fought the police in Ocean, DHEC, and stayed open, and I walked our staff off the ledge, and they took their mask off, and we all came to work. And we had customers that came in, one of our guys, and I voted for President Trump. He voted for Trump. He had a red Trump hat at his desk, and a lady saw that. Are y'all Republicans here? I don't see y'all wearing masks or anything. And she tore up her check and canceled a big sale. And I said, ma'am, when you came in the door, we didn't ask you who you voted for. We treat everybody the same. We're all created by God, and we're all equal at the foot of the cross. And I'll take that philosophy to the Senate to serve South Carolinians. Everybody here is who I work for. And I know how to work with customers. We've done that for over 40 years. We go out, and I've waited on thousands of customers, and we're really good at it. And we service them well. And it doesn't matter what you believe in, if you're married or not, or if you're a Democrat or a Republican, you're our customer.
Yeah.
And South Carolinians are my boss. I work for everybody in South Carolina. But it'll have to, again, line up with God's word and the Constitution when I make decisions. We're not a democracy. We are a republic. So if 51% of the people want to legalize cocaine, we're not doing that. That's not up for a vote, right? And those lies came out about me. Of all people who've worked helping free addicts from addiction, do you think I'm for legalizing marijuana and cocaine?
Well, I'll just
Lindsey Graham's people putting that lie out there.
I'll just say, I first of all, the just as a side to that, we legalized cocaine through Adderall. We're giving it to adults and kids.
Yep.
Marijuana is one of those things that it has a lot of support, sometimes on both sides of legalization. But mine isn't even just the legalization of marijuana. Hemp is such a valuable product. Whether it's being used in construction or it's being used in clothing. Clothing manufacturing could come back to the United States if hemp was legally allowed to be grown. South Carolina there have been permits issued for people to grow industrial hemp here in South Carolina on a very limited basis, but our corporations have restricted the industries here in this, and hemp could replace tobacco as the leading cash crop in for, like I said, for construction, for the clothing manufacturing. Like it's but we cut off our nose to spite our face.
Yeah.
But I will say,
Well,
I absolutely commend you on one, your faith. That is something that I struggled with, and eventually the point that I got to was my disappointment in the establishment of the Christianity church, the organizations, and I have found so much disappointment in the Southern Baptist Church and their release of 800 pages of victims and assailants, and then to come back and say, well, there's more than that, but we can't tell you who that is yet. They have, and the Catholic Church too. I was Catholic. I'm still Catholic, but I'm just not a practicing Catholic. But it's so difficult for me to look at what the church has allowed over the last 30 years to happen to children and to some of the families, and that's in spite of all of the good that churches do with the charity and the missionary work, and it's such a difficult divide for me to cross between the two, and see the flaws of man and using church sometimes as a weapon. And I don't, for me, religion should be your shield. Religion should be what you use to protect yourself and your family. And I see so many people using it as a weapon to hurt or cause harm for people. And that's, it's
well,
one of those things.
Satan's definitely involved in every church, and people are a mess. We're sinners. And so, but
Well, I'll absolute respect for, I was not aware of any of the, because I didn't get the flyers. I voted in the other primary, but I'll just say that to break yourself away from addiction, and that chemical need for whether it was cocaine or whatever drugs, I will just say that is a disease. And for you to be able to use your faith, or for your faith to work through you to pull you out of that, is just impeccable. I think that it proves that there is a path to a healthy relationship with yourself and with others by being able to break out of that. And I commend you for that, because I see plenty of stories about people that just can't do it, that they have not had the ability to break themselves away from it. And
that's 100% true. I can't do it, but God can. And it's about surrendering everything to Him and trusting Him, and then putting one foot in front of the other and believing and experience the change and work on the things. It's a faith issue. I don't need to escape into a bottle of liquor tonight to drown the day that I had, or smoke a joint, or do a line of cocaine, or whatever. I'm happy with who I am. I know my identity, and I know the truth. And that's all it is. It's just exchanging wrong, mixed up beliefs for truth, and surrendering and letting God lead.
Well,
it's so much easier. It's a whole lot easier.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I agree. I think I that is something that I've never suffered from, is addiction. I've never had a need for any chemicals or whatever. Maybe some melatonin to go to sleep sometimes, but it's foreign to me. I look at that, and I don't pass judgment on it, because I think that sometimes alcoholism or chemical dependencies are related a lot to, not necessarily part of it's your own choices, obviously, but I think that it's also related to generational, not you, but someone may have had a father or a grandfather who had an addiction problem. And maybe that's the excuse that they use to say, well, this is why I do it, is because they did it. But there's obviously a chemical dependency to it. And, I'm not a doctor, but, it's difficult. And I think that people being able to break themselves of that, or using your faith and allowing God to break your dependency on it, I absolutely commend you, because I don't think it's not an easy thing to do. And, while I've never been arrested for anything, the night's young. We'll see.
Yeah. My oldest sister and I'm the youngest, my oldest, we got caught for everything. The two in the middle did the same things and never got caught. So it came to an end fast for us. But I just want to tell all the families out there that if you have a family member struggling in addiction, don't give up. Don't enable them. Don't pay their way out of everything. Let them deal with it themselves. They're coming to the bottom. Quit putting a safety net under them and catching them before they hit. You got to let them hit and hope they live through it, and pray for them. And just give them a chance. Don't write them off. We all struggle with something. So I appreciate my family praying for me and not financially enabling me to continue down a stupid path, because the financial stuff eventually got to me at 25 years old. I was $53,000 in debt. I was working hard, but I was paying for attorneys and treatment centers and wrecked cars and all this stuff. And I got tired of that. That was one of the biggest things that woke me up. I'm tired of doing this. I don't have anything but debt,
That's
so
difficult.
anyway.
Yeah. Well, Mark, I sincerely appreciate you making time to sit down and talk with me, because
Yes, sir.
I think that, regardless of whoever's party's affiliation that they're listening to this, or whether or not they've made up their mind on who it is that they're voting for, the thing that I want people to take away is that there is a possibility, Mark, that you will win the nomination, and you could potentially win the election, and you would represent people in South Carolina. And the opportunity to sit with you and have an actual conversation is important, because we need our senators and our representatives to listen to us. I have attempted to get Joe Wilson to come on my show so many times. I have talked to him on the phone. I've talked to him in person, and would absolutely love the opportunity to have a real conversation with him outside of, the buzz feeds and things like that. So it's, I think it's necessary. And I absolutely appreciate you being able to take the time to sit down and talk with me. So
Absolutely.
South
It's great
Carolina.
to get to know you, and I appreciate what you're doing with your show. It's valuable.
Well, I appreciate that. And again, it gives me chills to hear you say that, because, you're up here, and, but listen, South Carolina Republicans are heading to the polls on August 11th with a possible runoff on August 25th with I think there are 12 candidates right now in
I
the
think
Sun.
it's down to 9.
I saw there's 3 that were not that had not been certified yet, but win or lose, this primary is going to say a lot about where the party sees itself after Lindsey Graham. So I commend you for getting back in the race. I think that this is I will just tell you, take care of yourself, because I see what it does to candidates and how difficult it is, and they always tell me the same thing. No, I'm okay. I'm getting by. I'm doing all right. But I think that you've got a fantastic support base to really shake it out. So, Mark,
there's hope for America and hope for a greater South Carolina. We have such a great state here. I love it. I was born here, lived here all my life, and there's no place like home. And South Carolina's an awesome place. And we got to continue doing the right thing. And we can bring back a slower lifestyle, get our infrastructures fixed, just help us get the right people in office that will be a good steward over your money and your lifestyle and your time and what you want seen done. And it's all about listening. I'm a great listener. I have to deal with customers every day. I really care. I don't mind. I have a servant's heart, right? My Lord and Savior gave his life for me. There's no greater love than he that would lay down his life for his friends. And that's why I do these things in service work, because I'm grateful for what I have. Man, I've got it made. We all do. We don't need to fret the small stuff, and everything's small stuff, but we do have to get up, make good decisions, go do what we got to do, quit talking and put more action to what we're thinking and what our mouth's saying, and get the job done. And that's me. I'm a finisher. And there's nothing too big we can't tackle. There's always a way, and God has shown me that in everything. And I've got great staff here that I work with. If I'm losing it, if I'm fearful over something, if I feel defeated, I don't sit there. I get up and go run my thoughts by somebody else. And they're like, man, I never thought about that. Thank you. That's what we got to do. That'll fix this. So it's all about communicating and working together and coming to a solution that suits everybody, that's good for everybody, that honors God. And there's always a way, and I know that.
Well,
that's what I'll bring to you and other South Carolinians if you help me get in, and we'll work on the stuff we need to work on and get it behind us.
Yeah, I think that's something South Carolina has been missing for quite a while, is that we have not had true representation, at least at the Senate level. So.
Yes, sir.
All right, Mark. Well, I'm going to wrap it up. I sincerely appreciate, again, your time. Thank you very much. Links to all of our past episodes, podcast platforms, merchandise, and social media are available at our webpage, theallaboutnothing.com. And if you think our financial model of giving away free content and entertainment is silly and you're in the giving mood, why not become an official Nothinger and support the show? Members get early access to this episode as well as exclusive content. Visit members.theallaboutnothing.com, or you can find a link on our webpage. You can also give a one-time donation through the same link. If you'd like to be a part of the show, you can call and leave us a message, 803-672-0533, or you can email the show at theallaboutnothing.com. You can also join our Discord server, links found on our webpage. Thanks for listening, everybody. You all stay safe, be kind, and keep your hands to yourself.
The All About Nothing podcast is a product of Big Media and produced and engineered by me, Barrett Gruber. Thanks to Cake for our intro music, Sick of You. You can follow Everything Cake the band at cakemusic.com. Thanks to Muff the producer for our outro music. You can follow Muff on Instagram at Muff the producer. You can follow me across social media by visiting Linktree/Barrett Gruber. And you can follow Zach King on Linktree/AAN Zach. Want to support the show? Visit our webpage, theallaboutnothing.com, and become a member. There are several tiers available that give you early access to episodes as well as exclusive content. To find links to our social media, podcast platforms, and merchandise to support the show, as well as past episodes, visit theallaboutnothing.com. If you'd like to be a part of the show, you can email the show at theallaboutnothing.com, or you can call our number and leave a message. Dial 803-672-0533. If the time between these episodes is more than you can handle, check out our sister shows. What the Pod Was That with Carrie, Zach, and myself. Welcome to Wonderland with me. Politically Speaking with Erica, Kirsten, and Emily. And Black, White, and Blue in the South with Dr. Jameel Brooks and Bill Kimmler. Please subscribe and share this show. If you're on YouTube, please subscribe and punch that notification bell. Thank you for listening, and hear us next week.
Well, you've made it to the end. You survived the rambling, the tangents, and whatever nonsense we just subjected your ears to. Congratulations. Now that your brain is sufficiently scrambled, how about doing something productive for democracy? Before you go off to forget everything you just heard, do yourself a favor and double-check that your voter registration is actually legit at theallaboutnothing.com/voter. It's about the only way to make sure your vote counts, even if your taste in podcasts is questionable.
The preceding podcast is solely owned by the host or hosts and is distributed by Big Media, LLC. Copyright 2026.
We all have routines. I'm Jabron, and with diabetes, mine was finger sticks. Sometimes I skip them because it hurt. The Freestyle Libre 3CGM changed that. It gives me glucose insights without finger sticks. Learn more at freestylelibre.us.
Finger sticks are required if your glucose alarms or readings do not match symptoms, or when you see check blood glucose symbol for the first 12 hours. The views expressed should not be used for medical diagnosis or treatment as a substitute for professional medical advice. Individual circumstances may vary. For prescription only. Safety info found at freestylelibre.us.